the idea of mediums and psychics, it felt like people that are often trying to just make money off of people in really vulnerable situations.
Yeah.
And I've always believed certainly there's got to be people who have certain gifts like that, but that the vast majority couldn't be trusted, or, I didn't think telepathy could be real. That seems impossible. It just seems impossible. Even things like plant communication felt impossible. Or, none of that was something that was like my worldview. I was working on, solving problems around paid family medical leave and making health insurance more affordable and accessible. Like, it was not my cup of tea, really. And so, which was kind of great, because as I tumbled into this world, I was really wide-eyed as like, wait a second, have I been wrong about everything? And that's kind of where I ended up, was like I had to go revisit everything I ever thought about the world, because I started realizing our entire paradigm is wrong. Or a lot of it is. That was my experience.
So let's talk about what you saw first. Like, what was the first example where it was like an aha moment for you?
Yeah. So after I heard the interview with Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, I Zoomed with her, and then I asked if I could go see her and meet her and talk about this a bit, because I thought this could be the next project. And I just knew it was going to be the next project, right? So one of the first things I had her do was I was like, can you just tell me about some of the emails that come in from parents? And I had her just kind of go through reading some emails from parents. And it was one after the other. Like, I didn't believe this, and I didn't believe my wife, or I didn't believe my husband that this could be possible, but we've tested it. People were sending tests. And I thought, okay, whatever is going on here, these parents don't know that any other parents are going through this. They think a singular miracle is happening in their home, that this child can read their thoughts. And that this is where the story is, that there's so many parents who haven't been listened to. And so I really thought this was about parents at first, and then discovered, no, there's been teachers writing about this for 30 years, capturing it, videotaping this phenomenon going on, and scared to come out about it. And I think same with the families, right? What a weird thing to say, this child can read my mind, or this child seems to be able to do X, Y, Z, things that seem impossible. And so, my first thought was, okay, I need to see this with my own eyes. And so Dr. Powell had just been reached out to by a family in Mexico who discovered that their 13-year-old daughter was inside. They didn't think she was, and she was able to communicate. And the reason they discovered that was during COVID. They were in charge of homeschooling and started being like, okay, let's see what you know. And bing, 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 she starts spelling. She knew an awful lot. And I think they were shocked. And pretty soon thereafter, she said, I can read your mind. And they thought, what? And they would do tests. What did I just draw? And she'd say what they just drew. What are we thinking? And she would write it. And so...
Do they say what they see? Or how they see it? Like, if someone writes something down, do they see the word or do they know it?
Well, I think that's a really good question. And, we've done a few experiments that, again, I'm not a scientist. Like, the experiments I was doing for the film, which is going to be now a film, but the podcast was kind of me just trying to understand, like, proof of concept, what is going on here, right? And I can only say what spellers have told me, and there's been quite a few spellers who say I can see through someone's eyes or I can hear through their ears. And others who seem to have a merged consciousness with someone that they're very close to, whether it be a father or a teacher or a communication partner, father or whatever. We did some experiments with one mom where we'd show an image to her. Her son, who was sitting across the room, would all of a sudden start writing what the image was. But what was so fascinating is sometimes the mom wouldn't even know what the image was. So at one point she thought it was paint. No, she thought there was a food fight. It was ketchup and mustard, and he wrote paint. So at that point, it's like she's not obviously sending a thought, right? He seems to be tapping in the second the image is in her own mind. So for us, it was a big question of, is this just sheer telepathy? Because a few parents have told me, no, this is bigger than that. It seems like a merging of consciousness of some sort.
Yeah, in a bizarre way. If the mother doesn't know what it is and the child does, that's strange.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And, but I also, one of the stories that I loved goes back, so Rupert Sheldrake, the Cambridge biologist who's in this project, he didn't believe in telepathy either. I think a lot of scientists, right, don't believe this stuff right away either. And he had a a senior professor that he really looked up to, Sir Rudolph Peters. And he was knighted by Queen Elizabeth for being such a brilliant scientific mind, right? And this Sir Rudolph Peters was in like the tea room at Cambridge one time and telling young Dr. Sheldrake, young Rupert here, that he just heard of a blind boy that he tested who obviously is blind and can't read an eye chart. But if his mother is looking at it, he could read it.
Whoa.
And that's how Rupert Sheldrake fell into this world. And that boy was diagnosed with, being blind, but also at the time what they called, severe mental retardation, which no, we don't call it that. That's, but that's, who knows what this young individual have, if he had apraxia or what was going on, or if he had autism. But
because autism and blindness, like it's a huge impediment, especially nonverbal autism and being blind. Like, how do you learn anything? So you would assume that there's something wrong with the child when really there's just a lack of the ability to communicate.
Yeah, with non-speaking individuals with apraxia, they are in there. They're so smart. It's just that mind-body disconnect and not being able to,
What do they think causes that? Do they have an understanding of what it is?
I don't know. There's so many wonderful experts out there looking into this, and I don't know what causes apraxia, but I do know that there's a lot of supports to help individuals who have apraxia to communicate.